Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. So we are going to be reviewing the brand new and highly requested Urban Decay Stoned Vibes eyeshadow palette. This is Urban Decay's latest release. It's their newest eyeshadow palette and it has been really popular. A lot of people have been asking for reviews on this one. So today we are finally going to be doing it. So I'm going to show you the palette really nice and up close. I'm going to do swatches of all of the shades. We can have a look at the different textures in the palette, see how they swatch, see the pigmentation, see what it's like. And then I'm going to be creating a full eyeshadow look on my eyes using the palette, and fingers crossed it performs really well and I'm going to be able to recommend it. I will obviously be giving you all of my thoughts the whole way through the video. So if you have been, curious about this palette, if you've been interested in, whether or not it's actually worth the money, then stick around for the review. All right, so first up, price-wise, this one is going to set you back $54 US and 83 Australian dollars. It is sold at Mecca here in Australia. It has been launched at Mecca here as part of like the holiday collection kind of thing. By the way, the holiday collection, oh my gosh. I need to stay off the website because I'm so tempted to literally buy every holiday gift set. I've got issues. This here is the box that the palette comes in. It is a 12 shadow eyeshadow palette. It is all vegan and it says it's a lineup of 12 all new, highly reflective shades that are infused with genuine tourmaline to block bad vibes and take your look higher. Okay, I gotta tell you, originally when I was looking into this palette, I had a lot of people commenting in videos and sending me Instagram DMs and stuff asking for a review, and I was like, stoned vibes? Is that about smoking? I feel like it's a weird name. It's beautiful packaging, but it's definitely a bit of an odd name. But yeah, this is the external box that it comes in. Really beautiful. And the back of the box just has all a picture of the shades and a little bit of information about the shadows. And then this here is the actual palette. And I have to tell you guys, I could get lost staring at this. It is so pretty. So this entire gemstone section is really reflective and it's actually 3D. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but it's actually 3D gem on top of the palette. It's so beautiful. Lots of really pretty metallic tones. It just, you could definitely put this one on display. It's beautiful. And then when you open this palette up, this is what the inside looks like. And again, there really is no denying how gorgeous this eyeshadow palette looks. The colors in there, oh, I feel like I'm hypnotized. So it does come with a double-ended brush. I can see here, pretty much a typical Urban Decay brush, flat on one end and then fluffy like a blending brush on the other side. These colors are so beautiful. So it looks like we have 4 matte shades on the outer 4 corners of the palette. So matte, and matte. Some deeper shades for building up color. Obviously a transition color here. A matte sort of bone color at the end here, which is obviously, I'm assuming, going to be to lay down a base for your eyeshadow and highlight the brow bone. And then in the middle, this incredible blend of, honestly, these eyeshadows actually look like gemstones. They look so beautiful. I'm so excited to get into swatches of this. I would call this palette overall a cool toned palette. There's definitely nothing really too warm about the palette. There's a little bit of a copper color here, but the majority of the shades in this are cool toned. And I do think that they are inspired by gemstones, obviously, as well. So yeah, really pretty and also quite different to, many of the palettes that are on the market and certainly many palettes that have been releasing recently. So let's jump into some swatches of this one. See if they actually translate on the skin in the same way that they look in the palette because they're honestly stunning. Really excited to dive in. All right, so here's a little overlook at all of the shades that you do get in this one. They're definitely a really beautiful and also quite different mixture of shades. Like I said, that I just haven't really seen in any other shadow palettes recently. And also now that it is swatched, it is looking a whole lot more warm than it did originally just from looking at the palette. There are quite a few warm tones through this back end of the swatches here, and I have swatched them in the order that they are in the palette as well. So this first shade here is a matte bone, and the other thing too that makes them really cool is they're all sort of duochrome shades. So hopefully you can see sort of as I'm rotating and showing them, can you see them changing colors? So this is a duochrome greeny gold. This is a really light icy sort of pearlescent pink. Then we have a beautiful gold which has hints of pink moving through it. Then another really sort of icy pink. It's a little bit darker than this one, but it's sort of like in the same sort of color family. Next up, we have like a matte apricot brown, then a matte warm brown. This shade here is probably my favorite in the palette. It literally looks like MAC blue brown pigment. It's just gorgeous. Like, it's got this gorgeous green blueness to it. It's kind of like an oil slick, but then the base of the shadow like is this really beautiful warm brown. Then this beautiful icy blue. Another pale shimmery lilac color here. A gorgeous sort of pinky copper. And then this one here is the darkest shadow in the palette. And it's not actually a flat matte. It's got a little bit of a sheen to it. It's kind of like a, I don't know, I guess like a burgundy kind of a color, but it's also got like a pinkness through it. They're so beautiful. All right, so those were all of the swatches. As far as the texture of the shadows go, you know, I did find the shimmers to be really, really sort of like quite wet feeling. They do feel really, really creamy when swatching. Like, they feel incredible. I'm curious to see how they go adhering to the eyes, because they do have sort of like larger-ish chunks of shimmer and glitter in them. And the mattes felt like actual velvet. They're so smooth and soft. So again, really curious to see how they blend, see how they go. I'm going to start working on creating a look with this palette now. I really, really want to use that Bloodstone shade. But yeah, we'll dip into as many of these shades as we can so that I can give you a really good idea of whether this one is actually worth the money or not. All right, so taking the brush that actually comes with your palette, I'm going to start with this Antidote shade here. It's that apricot kind of matte brown kind of color. It's definitely more towards like an apricot. I'm just going to work that one through the crease of my eyes to act as a transition shade. So I'm not getting a whole lot of pigmentation from that. Oh no, there we go. I just mustn't have had enough on the brush. The brush is actually quite soft, although I'm not a fan of the shape. I don't like blending brushes that are more of that oblong shape. I like them to be round at the end, because then you get a really even distribution of shadow, and it stops like patchiness and whatnot. But I guess after you've washed this one, you know, maybe it might take on a bit of a better shape. Overall, I'm not a big fan of this shape. Now, this particular matte shadow is packed in quite firmly. Like, as I'm really dunking my brush in, I'm not really getting any kickback whatsoever. It barely looks like I've even touched it. And I'm going to run a tiny bit of that one through the lower lash line as well. My concealer under my eyes has gone so funky today. I don't know what's going on. I've tested a new primer and it's making it look so crepey. Not a fan. All right, taking a round blending brush, I'm going to go into Hexed, I guess the darkest matte shadow, because this one at the bottom, what's this one called? Third Eye. It's not actually matte. So yeah, Hex is definitely the darkest matte. And I'm going to start to work this one through the inner and outer corners of both eyes. We might do like a bit of a spotlight halo eye today, maybe. But I am curious to see how dark and deep I can get it with the shadows in this. I would have liked to see a black shadow in this palette. I do think that because of the texture of these shimmers and like the amazingness and the duochromeness of them, they would just look so amazing over, like padded over the top of a really dark base. It would just... it would really take them to the next level. So it would have been good to see, you know, like a matte shadow in here. But yeah, we'll see how dark we can get it with what we've got. And I must say, you guys, this brown is actually blending like heaven. I'm low-key surprised. There's no patchiness. There's no choppiness. It's really easy to blend. All right, I'm going to dip into Third Eye now, just with the flat end of the Urban Decay brush. And I'm going to see how dark and smoky we can build this up. So I'm going to press it into the outer corner and inner corner of my eyes, just pressing it onto the lid, and then we'll come back and we'll blend it with a blending brush. I quite like the flat end of this brush. I mean, I've got small eyes, so it makes it easy to get in there. Then taking that same blending brush that I used for the slightly lighter brown earlier, just going to buff the edges of that. Okay, so it definitely blends out fairly well, but you do lose like a bit of the intensity, a bit of that deepness when blending. It kind of knocks it off because it does have like a semi-shimmery sort of formula. It's like a satin formula, I guess you would call it. I'm going to take a larger flat brush, go back into Third Eye. It's always really interesting to see how I go, you know, with the brushes that I love to use. Yeah, see the difference that makes? It's all in the brushes, you guys. Really is. All right, now we've got the outer corners where we kind of want them. I'm going to start playing with some of these beautiful shimmers. Oh, they're just so pretty looking. They honestly do look like gemstones. I'm going to go into Bloodstone, my favorite shadow from the palette, and I'm going to try it according to the back of the box. You can use the shadows on a finger or on a wet brush to really build up the intensity. So we'll try first with my finger. So picking that one up, look at how amazing that color is. I love it. Ooh, look at that. Oh, it actually is translating like a little bit more green on my eye than it did in the original swatch too. So just pressing that one onto the lid. I wouldn't say that the payoff and the pigmentation on my eye is as good as what it was when I swatched it. It's nearly like in the pan I've like mushed the shadow together nearly too hard, and so I'm not getting it like transferring on the eyes. Does that make sense? So I'm going to wet a brush now and we'll try it with a wet brush. All right, I've got it on a wet brush. That's better. Yeah, okay, so these ones might be wet brush shadows. Okay. And then coming over onto this eye, we're going to repeat. Yeah, you do. I recommend a wet brush with these. And then just coming back in with that blending brush, I'm just going to soften the edges of that. It does look really pretty on the eyes. Really curious that it doesn't work with a fingertip, that particular shadow. It's not, yeah, you don't often come across that. It's usually the other way around. It doesn't work on a brush. All right, I'm going to go in with Opal Aura next. This one here, it looks so pretty in the pan. It's like blue and purple and like pale champagne kind of colors all mixed in. It's beautiful. Just taking that on the end of my finger, I'm just going to try and pat it in the center of each lid just to see how it performs. Because I am curious. Yeah, you get a little bit more payoff with that one. But honestly, the transfer like that I'm getting on my eyes is nothing in comparison to the swatches that I did. Why is that happening? I honestly think, guys, that these are not like shadows that you should use your fingertips with. I think it's a wet brush situation only. Picking it up on the brush and we'll pat it right in the center. Yeah, see the difference? That's really fascinating. You just don't often see that. Curious, and especially when the back of the palette recommends to use a fingertip as well. Like, I find that extra interesting. Okay, going in with Hexed again, I'm going to use this on the inner and outer corner of the lower lash line. It's kind of a tricky palette to test like all of the shades. I can't really stack because they are chunky. I can't really pile more colors on top of my eye than I already have. All right, taking a small flat brush, I'm going to go into Vibes. Vibes is this sort of like pretty lilac shimmery color here. And I just want to try this on a dry brush and sort of see what happens exactly. You don't really pick up too much when the brush isn't wet. I'm going to try that on the inner corner of my eyes though. Yeah, so not much payoff with a dry brush. I've wet my brush now, so I'm going to go in again. Where's Vibes? There it is. And picking that up. See how much more product you pick up with a wet brush? It makes a huge, huge difference. Pack that on and like, look. See? Heaps of payoff now. So I'm packing that on the inner corner. That looks beautiful on the inner corner. Really, really like that. I think overall this is a really beautiful palette. I do think though, like, it's interesting that you have to use it differently to like the traditional ways that I would normally use a palette. Thankfully it's not, you know, you need this product and this special brush and this is the way that you have to do it. Thankfully it's just using a wet brush. But I am quite curious that you cannot use a dry brush or a fingertip in these shadows, because the box does recommend that and it definitely doesn't work. But like with a wet brush, they're sensational. Like, they just look so beautiful. Okay, so I've cleaned and wet my brush again. I'm going to go into Meditate, the really pretty rose gold shimmer in this one. So picking it up with the wet brush again, because let's be real, it's the only thing that works. And I'm going to push that one into the lower lash line. Yeah, this one seems like more of like a glitter topper. It's very, very sparkly. It's probably a bit hard for you to see. It's very sparkly, but it doesn't have like heaps of payoff. All right, so for interest's sake, and because I'm not really able to test any more shadows on my eyes, I'm going to take a wet brush and let's just try some of the other shades on a wet brush on the back of my hand. I'm starting to think that the swatches worked so well because like you drag the swatch over your skin and it kind of melts the pigments, like the butteriness of the pigments, and it like works them into the skin. I'm not getting the same I'm really not getting the same results on my eyes. So wet brush going into Jade. So we'll just sort of rub that one in there. That is what the brush looks like. And then let's try on the back of my hand and see how that goes. Yeah, so you get payoff with that one. Hopefully you can, it's kind of hard to see in the light, isn't it? It's like a soft light, shimmery goldy green, but you definitely get payoff with a wet brush with that one. Let's try Ojo, the beautiful rich blue. It's got such pretty reflex of purple through it. It's really nice. So let's try this one out. Yeah, okay, so we get payoff with that one as well. It's a wet brush situation, but look, if I take my finger and I rub it in Ojo, see how much it picks up on my finger? That's kind of what I expected from the performance of the shadows. I expected it to look like that on my actual lid. So I wonder if I just pat this on. Okay, so Ojo applies better, but if I take my finger and I take Jade, again, see the difference? And then pat it on. Oh no, Jade looks the same on my finger as the brush swatch. Yeah, but these ones didn't. Curious, very curious. All right, well, I'm gonna jump off camera quickly and pop some lashes on and some lipstick and blush and stuff, finish my makeup off, and then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts on this one. I don't know yet. I don't know. All right, so the rest of my makeup is on, and this is how the eyes came out. Despite sort of everything, you know, this video has definitely been a bit of a learning curve, a bit of a learning process, because this eyeshadow palette, the textures and the formulas in this cannot be used, you know, in the same way that a normal eyeshadow palette can be used. I am going to say that, you know, if you are going to be going in and looking at purchasing this one, don't expect to be able to use it in the same way that you would use a normal shimmer shadow, because they are very different in texture and they're just not designed to kind of be used that way. But I am happy with how everything came out. Like, it looks very pretty, and it definitely does look like gemstones. Like, there's little bits of textured glitter here and there. It changes color as you move your eyes. It does look honestly beautiful, 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 you know, once you have completed your look. But I don't want you to, you know, spend your money on this and purchase this thinking that, you know, it can be used exactly the same as every other shimmer eyeshadow in every other eyeshadow palette that you maybe do have. So my recommendations for this one, and I will say it is a really beautiful palette. The packaging, all of the colors in it are gorgeous. You can create really, really nice looks. All of the mattes and also that satin shadow at the top there, you know, they blended absolutely beautifully. But my recommendations for the shimmer shadows is use them all with a wet brush. I did play with pretty much every eyeshadow in the palette. I've tested them both on my fingers, patting them onto the skin. I've tested them on top of primer. I've tested them on wet brushes and dry brushes. They're not like every single shadow in this palette kind of performs a little bit differently. Some of them absolutely wet brush only, in my opinion, you know, especially the ones that you saw me apply today. The Bloodstone one that I've got over the majority of my eye, really, we had no payoff on a fingertip, but then on a wet brush, it was awesome. This green one here doesn't really work so much on a wet brush. You need to pat it on with your finger. You see what I mean? Like, every single shadow, like the shimmers certainly, every single shadow in this, they do behave a little bit differently, and you do kind of need to learn the palette and sort of learn how to use it. But at the same time, once you do, you can create a really beautiful eyeshadow look. I will say, first and foremost, I'm not going to recommend this one for you if you are a beginner with eyeshadows, if you don't have that many makeup brushes, you know, eyeshadow brushes, because I think that you are going to have quite a hard time getting it to work, getting that payoff, getting that pigmentation to come through. I just don't think that the textures in this are like normal shimmer eyeshadows, and I think if you remove that aspect, remove that expectation, you'll really, really enjoy it once you learn to use it. Does that make sense? I feel like this is a really incomplete review. I really love all of the colors, and they really do shift and transform on the skin and in the light. Like, they're really, really beautiful looking, but it's just not that easy to use. So I hope that maybe this answered any questions that you may have had about this palette. I just feel like it's a palette that I'm going to have to continue playing with. Like, I feel like I've got a good idea, but I will continue playing with it. I will continue wearing it in the upcoming days. Let you know if I discover anything different. I do also want to watch a couple of other reviews and see what other people thought of it, see their experience with it, because mine certainly has not been straightforward, but at the same time, it is a really beautiful eyeshadow palette. So if you are willing, you know, to work with different textures and different formula and like a different kind of technique, you'll love it. But if you're not willing to work with a different technique, I think you're going to hate it. I hope that answers everything. So there you go, guys. Those are all of my thoughts on the brand new Urban Decay Stoned Vibes eyeshadow palette. Please, if you've got any more questions about this one, please pop them in the comments down below. I'll be sure to answer them. Let me know, have you got this palette? I want to know what your experience with it is. You know, did you find the same thing as me? Like, did you find that you have to use the shadows in sort of different ways? I do feel like my eyes are literally the same color as this like gemstone bit on the front. That's really, really cool. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think. I want to know your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know down below. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I love you all heaps, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!